Archaeologists spent a century believing Sardinia's megalithic tombs belonged to a single, unified Bronze Age culture. The bones tell a different story. The conventional explanation is straightforward. Between roughly 3,400 and 1,400 BCE, the Nuragic civilization dominated Sardinia. They built monumental tombs called giants' tombs, domus de janas, or houses of fairies in the local dialect. Hundreds of these structures still dot the island. Archaeologists catalogued them, dated them, and filed them into a coherent narrative. One people, one culture, one burial practice spanning 2,000 years. But in the 1970s and 1980, systematic excavations began to fracture this picture. Teams led by researchers including Ercole Contu and others started cataloging not just the architecture, but the skeletal remains inside. What they found wasn't chaos, it was specificity. The bones didn't match, not in age, not in burial custom, not in the artifacts placed alongside them. Take the tombs in the Maddalena region dated to around 3,200 BCE. Skeletal analysis revealed predominantly female burials. The grave goods, pottery, tools, ornaments reflected a specific economic status. Wealth concentration was visible, then moved north. The tombs near Sassari, dated just 4 centuries later, show something else entirely. Mixed-age burials, different pottery styles, egalitarian distribution of goods. This wasn't drift. This wasn't cultural evolution within a single society. These were distinct populations with distinct mortuary practices. Radiocarbon dating, when applied rigorously, revealed overlapping chronologies that made no sense under the unified culture model. Groups that supposedly belonged to the same civilization were burying their dead in fundamentally different ways, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes centuries apart. The accepted framework began to crack further when DNA analysis entered the picture. Around 2010, geneticists started extracting and sequencing mitochondrial DNA from skeletal remains pulled from giants' tombs. The results were unsettling. The populations weren't genetically uniform. Multiple distinct lineages appeared in the burial record. Some individuals showed genetic affinity to mainland Mediterranean populations. Others showed markers consistent with Central European ancestry. By the early 2020s, the picture had shifted entirely. What emerged from the data wasn't the Nuragic civilization as a monolithic entity. It was a patchwork, competing groups, migrating populations, multiple waves of settlement and resettlement across Sardinia's Bronze Age. Some groups maintained their burial practices for centuries, others abandoned them within generations. Conflict and coexistence left traces in the stone. One specific example crystallizes this. The giant's tomb of Lai Lalgai, excavated in the 1980s, contained remains spanning roughly 8 centuries, but the burials weren't continuous. Layers of sediment separated distinct burial phases. The earliest phase showed one mortuary ritual, a gap, then a completely different practice resumed centuries later, the same structure, different people, different beliefs. Isotope analysis of teeth and bone provided the final blow to the unified narrative. Oxygen and carbon isotopes revealed dietary patterns and climate conditions during childhood. Individuals buried in the same tomb sometimes showed completely different isotopic signatures. They grew up in different environments, different diets. Some likely weren't born on Sardinia at all. Here's what the evidence actually suggests. Bronze Age Sardinia wasn't unified, it was a frontier. Waves of maritime traders and settlers arrived from different regions over centuries. Some came from the Iberian Peninsula, some from mainland Italy, some from the eastern Mediterranean. They didn't displace earlier inhabitants, they coexisted, they married, they sometimes competed, they all left their dead in stone. The giants' tombs themselves became markers of this complexity. Some were built once and abandoned, others were reused, modified, expanded. Local populations adopted the megalithic form but adapted it to their own burial customs. A single architectural type housed multiple cultural expressions. The structure was shared, the meaning was not. This reframing changes everything we thought we knew about Bronze Age Mediterranean development. Sardinia wasn't a backwater waiting for civilization to arrive. It was a meeting point, a place where multiple populations negotiated space, resources, and identity. The archaeological record preserves that negotiation in stone and bone. Current scholarship, still evolving, suggests the giants' tombs were built over at least 3 distinct cultural phases. The earliest, around 3,400 to 3000 BCE, shows signs of local Sardinian populations. The middle phase, 3000 to 2000 BCE, reflects influx from external maritime populations. The latest phase, 2000 to 1400 BCE, shows increasing cultural mixture and local adaptation of imported traditions. What we're left with isn't a mystery solved, it's a more honest uncertainty. We know the giants' tombs are real, we know they span centuries, we know multiple populations used them. But the precise mechanics of coexistence, the exact timing of migrations, the nature of social hierarchies, these remain contested. The data keeps shifting as technology improves. The lesson isn't just about Sardinia, it's about how we construct historical narratives. A century of archaeology built a coherent story. It felt true, it satisfied the desire for order, but it was incomplete. It required new tools, genetic analysis, isotope chemistry, advanced dating to crack open. The truth was always in the details, we just didn't have the resolution to read it. Today, archaeologists working on Sardinia focus on specificity. Not the neuralgic civilization, but the communities of the Maddalena region or the coastal populations of the north. They're building a more fragmented, more complex, more accurate picture. The giants' tombs remain, but they are no longer monuments to a single people. They are records of contact, coexistence, and cultural exchange. The implication extends beyond academic revision. It suggests that Bronze Age Mediterranean societies were far more connected, far more fluid, far more integrated than we once believed. Trade networks weren't marginal. They were central. People moved, ideas moved faster, cultures blended. The giants' tombs of Sardinia are physical evidence of that ancient globalization. The mystery isn't solved, but it's been reframed. We're no longer asking who built these tombs, we're asking better questions. How did these populations interact? What drove their movements? How did they negotiate identity in shared space? Those questions have no single answer. They require ongoing investigation, ongoing revision, ongoing humility before the evidence. Sardinia's giants' tombs remain silent and stone. They hold the bones of people we'll never fully know. But with each new analysis, each new tool, we hear them a little more clearly. The story they tell isn't of a unified civilization. It's of movement, adaptation, and the messy reality of how ancient peoples actually lived. Subscribe for more historical mysteries, where the accepted story unravels under scrutiny. New episodes every week.